Welcome to the Harnessing Happiness podcast. Upbeat vibes generated and transferred to you. Now here's your host, Sarah J Naylor.
Hello and welcome to Harnessing Happiness with myself, Sarah J Naylor. Thank you, as always, for dropping on by and taking time to listen to my podcast. Today, I am delighted. I have the wonderful Karishma Sharma. So, over to you, Karishma. Please do take the stage and introduce yourself to my fabulous listeners.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me. I'm Karishma Sharma. I am a breakthrough coach, international speaker, and 2 times best-selling author. So essentially, I help women, entrepreneurs, leaders to take all their mind, body, and soul blocks and really work through them so that we can unleash a life of fun, freedom, and fabulousness, whether it's in their business, whether it's in their personal life, relationships, whether it's in their health, their creative expression, and really taking that to elevate their next level of success, whatever that might look like for themselves. So thank you once again for having me.
You are more than welcome. And all those things that you do, I mean, it's just so important, isn't it? It's so important that we work on ourselves, we do that inner work, and we take that time, we do that development and connect with ourselves. I mean, what sort of things do you work on particularly? Are there any areas that you have noted that it is important for people? You know, I mean, this is all about happiness, and you know, it's so important to have that inner stuff right so that you feel happy, and that all radiates outwards. But you know, you expand. Tell me more, Karishma.
Of course, for me, for the longest time, I just kept saying, I want to be happy. And I just kept looking at the outside world to make me happy. I thought it might be, you know, the next relationship. It might be going traveling. It might be, you know, I don't know, moving abroad or something. And then it came to a point where I realized actually it all comes from within. And I know that sounds really cliche, but it really did change my life when I started doing my inner work. And when I started to see the changes within myself, and that started to reflect on the outside world, I was like, I love this. And yes. I want to help other people do the same. I want people to feel that change where they've struggled before and then wanted that little something to make them feel better, that happiness. I was like, this is my calling. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to share with others. And so I got trained up in subconscious reprogramming, doing a past life regressions, trauma work, energetics, positive psychology, really diving deep into mindset work. And what I did with all of that is I put that all together to make my own quantum leap results activation system. And that's what I take my clients through, is a system of really unleashing their full potential from within.
That sounds absolutely amazing. But is it so important, those points that you just highlighted right at the beginning, if we could go back to your sort of aha moment, that looking outward and going, actually, these things aren't actually changing. You can think that they are. You can think, oh, I'm going to go and buy that next dress, that handbag, that car, that whatever it is, that holiday. And yes, it might give you that moment of sort of jubilation and enjoyment, but it's not lasting. It's not impactful, is it, to that extent of the inner work and understanding what it is that you need to do. For me, I'm sure you've heard me refer to it before, it's that sort of, I work with that 8 mindset, which is that acceptance, perspective and energy. It's like, you know, just accepting what you can and you can't change and shifting your perspective and focusing your energy accordingly, because there's no point battling against something. If a door's not opening, just leave it. Unless, of course, you're really passionate about bashing it down because there's a reason behind it. I'm not sort of knocking people for doing something to bring about positive change. But as you said, once you've done that inner work, you see the changes coming back to you, because what you actually put out is, of course, what you attract back to you? Because you've obviously then recognised that to go and do the training. So presumably you'd gone through and had, like myself, again, I've done a lot of work. But had there been anything that you'd specifically done in terms of your own sort of personal journey that was, that brought about those sort of changes for you to then go on and train yourself?
I was struggling with anxiety attacks, depression. I hit an all-time low, and it really came to a point where I was sort of sat in my room thinking, I can't go on like this can't be my life. And I was in floods of tears, and it was literally a bit like the Matrix. It's like the blue pill or the red pill, and I was literally like, do I go on feeling this way, or do I basically make a decision in this moment to entirely change my life? And I chose to change things, pick myself up. And that is exactly the moment where it was almost like spirituality came into my life, the door opened, and I started doing different types of work. And that started, off as working with my energy, working with my mindset, working with coaches. And that was a completely new world to me. Boy, oh boy, did that really open my eyes, because I thought all this time, especially in like my culture, for example, you don't talk about feeling depressed. You don't talk about feeling down. It's, there's just always this custom of people pleasing and putting up a front that everything's all okay, and you can't show otherwise, or you can't talk about things being other than perfect. I felt very lonely, very, very lonely, and I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know who to talk to. It was almost like embarrassing that I was feeling this way. But what I came to realize is that actually my mission was to almost unleash this topic, this breakthrough with these cycles of constantly processing these topics behind closed doors. It's almost like I'm here to basically take us forward in this lifetime of where people have suffered in the background. It doesn't need to happen like that anymore, where ancestors have had traumas and that's been passed down through generations and generations, and where in that same programming, I'm here to break that. And, it might sound like, she's being a bit big-headed, but the work that I've done, I've had so many people come to me and say, thank you for talking about this. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for, just being so open, because I had X, Y, and Z going on, but I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know who to talk to. And you sharing this has given me that inspiration to go and get that help. It's inspired me to go and speak to someone, and I don't feel alone anymore. And I think that for me is just so important, because that loneliness is what really got me. Just knowing that people are now starting to think, I don't need to do this on my own anymore. Like, I can go and get help. I can reach out to people. I can find a coach or therapy or whatever feels right for them. It's almost like awakening to who you truly are is now becoming so I don't want to use the word common, but almost like people are starting to understand how important it is to connect to who you truly are. And that all comes from within.
Everything that you've just said, that the wisdom that's come through and everything, reflections that you've had from other people, or the feedback you've had from other people, it's just really, really important to sort of highlight that, because I've had feedback on the podcast from people that in a very similar manner, that they're hearing these stories, they're hearing people, they don't feel alone because the stories are being shared, And it's, I've gone tingly. And we all know what that means, Karishma. It's a real sign. It's like, oh my word. But it's sharing that knowledge. It's sharing that wisdom. It's sharing that enlightenment. And as you have so eloquently demonstrated, that it's giving that power to people to feel that they have got a voice. They can speak up. It's important too. And it's perfectly acceptable too. Find a coach, find a mentor, have, holistic therapies or whatever therapies, speaking therapies. I've always sort of been spiritually attuned myself, but I've very much developed that over the last 17 years. And, I've done sort of EFT, regressional hypnotherapy. I've done shamanic stuff. I've done NLP. I've done coach training. I've done so much stuff. And, that enlightenment that you get, and that actually not just enlightenment, that you lift your vibrational frequency, don't you, as a result? And that's what helps you then change that is that internal work which we are referring to. It's how you work on your brain. It's not just about knowledge in terms of reading a book and regurgitating stuff. It's what you really feel within your body, soul and spirit, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And, that's something that I feel quite passionate about, is because, a lot of people will read books or just share things on like their stories or social media, and that doesn't actually, just words of motivation doesn't change things. Like, what you have to do is you have to do your own inner work. And that's where the real transformation is. And I know a lot of people are scared to do it because they don't know what is involved. They don't know what's going to happen, what life is going to look like on the other side. I've had so many people, just when I've talked about trauma, run the other way because it terrifies people, because we've been almost programmed in that way to go the opposite direction of doing your inner work. And it's not something that's shared from a young age, that this is the norm, this is what we want to do. We want to change our lives, we want to break cycles, we want to heal ancestral wounds, we want to heal ourselves, and we want to heal generations to come, because that's exactly what happens when we do our inner work. We're healing 7 generations backwards and 7 generations forwards. Now when I look at like my niece and nephew, or like just any generations that are on the way, and I just think, this is why I'm doing this work, because I want a change for them. I want a change for myself. Eventually, when I have kids, I want them to be free of this conditioning. I want them to break free. I want them to live the life that they truly want. Because often I speak to so many people who are almost stuck in situations that they can't feel like they can break out of, and they're not living a life that's true to them. And we have this one life, so we need to make it the best experience that we can, and we really can do that by breaking free of the shackles.
And I'm wholeheartedly with you in terms of supporting those around us and helping to bring about that change. And yeah, it can feel scary, and change can feel scary to people, but the thing is, people sit in that uncomfortable comfort zone because it's a familiarity. But when you do take that step out, yes, things will change, but and you may lose friends in the process, and that's kind of part of that sort of shedding of the old layers, and that you need to break through, and it will keep happening, and each time you do sort of make you kind of level up. But I know you've referred to sort of children. I mean, my son, he's now 23, and I've kind of really sort of encouraged and supported him to follow his own flow, to come up with his own answers and his own solutions. And it's really interesting every so often. I mean, he's moved out it's 7 or 8 months ago now, but when I hear him sort of, and that it's the words that you've had that have helped influence, and it's just like, yes, he gets it. And he is tuned in, and I think as he increases his, as he gets older and wiser, and he'll pick up and develop even more of that. But he is very aware. I mean, he went off to do something just recently, and he could have actually got really sort of frustrated and angry about it, but he recognised the situation that didn't materialise, the fact that it obviously wasn't meant to happen, and has let it go, which is great, because unfortunately a lot of people will get caught up with a lot of angst, won't they, when things don't happen. It's like that rage, but there's just There are reasons. If things aren't meant to happen, they're not meant to happen. And we don't necessarily need to know why those things haven't happened or why we're on a particular path, but it's recognising it and accepting it for what it is and taking that learning. It's like I say, just before we started to record, I mentioned about me being poorly. I've just looked back and sort of what have I got to learn about myself? What have I got to do to make my life better so that I'm not getting, because when you get poorly, it's a knock to you to say, I think you need to be doing something slightly different.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's the exact same thing that happened to me. I was not very well in like December, and it really did give me time to reflect on what is going well, what is not, and really sitting with what changes do I need to make, because it is your body basically like, hello, you're missing a trick here.
Exactly. It's like bells and whistles. Have you not learnt yet?
Exactly. And just what you've shared about your son, like most of my life was the biggest warrior, the biggest stressor. Like anything that would happen, I would almost get prepared for worst case scenario in every scenario, because someone once said to me, always think of the worst thing that could happen, that way you can never be disappointed. And that sat with me for so long.
No, you anchored it. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I would always automatically go into what is the worst case scenario and think about that over and over. And then what was I doing? I was literally sending out to the universe, manifesting worst case scenarios.
Yeah. Because you get what you focus in on.
Exactly.
And you just, all your energy was going in onto that. Oh my word.
Exactly.
The damage is incredible.
It's only when I started doing my inner work and understanding more about manifesting, law of attraction, and how powerful our minds are at basically bringing things into formation, which is manifesting essentially. I was like, wow. All that time I was thinking of worst case scenario, I was just penalizing myself by bringing in what I didn't want rather than focusing on what I do want. And now that's exactly what shift I've made is, what do I want? Like, I never, a few years ago, I never would have thought I'd be sitting here having a conversation for a podcast. And that's the thing, there's so many things. I never thought I would do international speaking. I never thought I would write, co-author books. And you just think, oh, that's not something I can do. That's something, important people do or famous people do. And then you realize you've got so much potential within yourself. The things that you can create is incredible. Like, the opportunities, the power that you have, the limitlessness that you have. There's so many opportunities and you can do it, because what you once thought was impossible is possible. And it's just about shifting all that limitation from your mind, from your body, from your soul, and really listening into what is your purpose. Like, why are you even on this planet? You're here to live your soul purpose. And once you connect into what that truly is, what that truly means, what that truly looks like, that's when things start to fall into place and things will just start to happen around you, which you're like, did that just happen? Like, I didn't even work hard for that, and it just sort of dropped in my lap.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and it is. I mean, I do know. I mean, I've worked in recruitment since 1987, and I do think, seeing the people that I've spoken to, and I don't think it's a path, it's a journey that so many people actually go on. And I think that sort of delving into the self, it's quite, like you mentioned earlier, there's a sort of scary sort of approach to actually finding out who you are. And it's, if you want to bring about the change, it is so important to do that work, and it's important to find the right guide, the right mentor, the right coach, the right person to help you on that path to that self-exploration, because it's a finding that passion, what fires you, what makes your heart sing. And I'm so passionate about that with people in their careers, because I think if you're aligning your talents and your passions with your career, you can then fulfill your fulfill your potential and live your life on purpose. And you will find that purpose along the way. I mean, I know I've always been sort of really, that's something that's sort of been within me for years and decades, obviously. And but it takes that unraveling, and I often refer to people spending more time sort of specking out their car, or spending more money on their car and maintenance than they do on themselves, and doing that sort of, what is it that I want out of life? What is it I want out of a job? What is it that, how much money am I going to spend on my own personal development? It's taking that responsibility and looking after yourself. I've just been watching the Janet Jackson documentary, and it was really interesting. She took responsibility for her own life when she was, I think it was about 18, and she sort of stepped away from her father's management, and her career has been incredible. But she's just really calm, peaceful, unbelievable. If you've not seen it, watch it, because it's really interesting. She's got this real presence about her, and that's knowing yourself and acceptance. And she used that word as well, Karishma. She used acceptance, and she doesn't have that sort of, she lets things go. And it's powerful, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. And you've sort of raised that point twice now, and that letting go, I never really understood what that meant, because I was such a warrior, I was such a stressor. I wanted to sort of control everything, and now understanding that I was actually stopping things from happening because I was trying to control everything. And it's almost like, since being able to go on this journey of understanding more about myself and connecting in with my higher self and guides, understanding that they've got your back, and if something is meant for you, it will happen. There's nothing that will stop it from happening. If it's truly, truly meant to be, it will happen for you. And just letting go of that control, becoming less of a stressor, less of a worrier, and just almost like letting, like you said, letting go, just breathing, taking a step back, and just letting yourself soak up the energy, just trusting that things are going to work out, surrendering to the process. That is when the magic really happens. It's amazing, because it took me a long time to get over that control, that perfectionism, that, fear of success, fear of failure, fear of this, fear of that, and just trusting that actually things are going to work out, having that faith. Because if you are holding on to that vibration of it's going to happen, if you're holding on to that in your mindset, if you're holding on to that in your subconscious mind, if you're just filling yourself up with that juiciness, that amazing perfectionism of imperfection, and really understanding that no matter what, it's going to happen, it's done, it's already done, like I have so much faith, you're unlocking so much more than you realize. Like, although it's like something you can't see, you're not controlling, just unlocking that is just gonna really elevate you to newer levels, and it's so exciting.
Isn't it just? I mean, the thing is, there's so much more in the unseen than there is in the seen. I mean, you've only got to sort of think about I think the sound waves in themselves that you can't see when you're making a telephone call. You just think, I don't even understand how that works. But, there's so much more in the unseen than there is in the seen. And letting go of the expectation of the outcome, I think, is important, because you can set the wheels in motion for something. Because I think having a bigger picture, having an idea of what it is you want to work towards, learning from what's gone in the past, being very much in the present, having something to work towards, but it might be what you've got in mind isn't what you thought. I mean, I've had experiences where I've gone into it thinking this is what I want from it, and actually I've got something completely different, as an outcome, and it's what I needed rather than what I thought I wanted. And as you said, it's just trusting that everything's working out. I mean, this podcast, for example, I mean, I've been very, very focused and think, oh my gosh, I've got to do a lot of promotion on it and let me get on and create a Canva graphic, do it on Instagram and do it on Facebook and do it on LinkedIn. And have you tried TikTok? And actually, my wonderful Peter podcast producer, who will be listening, of course, shortly, he requested with Podbean that they feature the podcast, and suddenly just the viewing figures have gone up and it's spiked, and it's just like, and that didn't require me to do anything. And I say, having mentioned I've been poorly, I just let go of everything and gone, I can't do all of this. This is crazy. And suddenly, I've not done anything, but the viewing figures have gone up. And it's just like, but I'm doing the bit that I'm passionate about, which is this, talking to the people who with wonderful wisdom and energy and personalities like yourself, Karishma, who can spread and share that wisdom. It's like that pebble that goes in the water that ripples out. And there's so much we can spread, and we can touch upon people who are listening globally, because the audience now is so widespread. So what makes you happy now then, Karishma? What is it that makes you a happy person?
Oh my gosh, where to start? For me, like, my focus is like, as we go through life, we want so many things. Like, we want this and we want that, and everything is just like so exciting. You can get your hands on everything. When I started to focus in on what my emphasize one is, and that is something that's basically, as it says, like really emphasized by you from like the depths of your soul. What is it that I truly want? And for me, that's freedom. And freedom is divine freedom, which means freedom for all. So for myself and for all. And under freedom is so many little things, emotional freedom, financial freedom, location freedom, all different types of freedom. But for me, it's working towards that, because through energetics, I energize things, and I can help clients do the same, is energize your manifestations so that they are continuously lasting. Your results are continuous. You're not just having a one-off manifestation. So for freedom, things like travel, that's what makes me free. I've just come back from Jamaica, and everyone's just, I was sharing my sort of journey on Instagram and other social media platforms, and the comments that were coming through, just people watching what I was doing or posting, that is what makes me feel free, is like doing something I truly love. But I've done traveling before, and I've sat there and I've cried because that inner work hadn't been done. And now I travel, having done that inner work, released what was holding me back, because I still had that trauma wherever I went. Now I've released that. It's a whole different level, connecting to the water, connecting to feeling nature around me. It's a whole different expansion level. It's a different level of accessing energetics. It's a different level of connecting to nature, to people, to just being in a different environment. And just how you shared everything working out for you in such a beautiful way with the podcast, the same happened with this trip. Every obstacle that came up, because I only planned it a week before I went to surprise my cousin for her wedding, it just all worked out. Everything that needed to be done happened so that I could be there, because I was energizing this life of freedom for all, and just getting people to understand, like, you can do what you truly want. And so many people have now said, I need some sunshine, because I know it sounds really obvious, but it really triggered something. Yeah. And it's not just about like, oh, I need a holiday. It's like, what does that sun mean to you when you've been in the winter for so long, for example, or, a lot of people haven't been out the country and they've just thought, actually, I really want to go away somewhere. It doesn't have to be a staycation anymore. It could trigger just what that feeling of emotional freedom means for someone. It doesn't have to be travel for everyone. It's different elements of freedom, and that's what I'm trying to bring, and that's what makes me happy, is when I can do that for myself, but help other people to do that and energize their emphasize wants, whether, it's a relationship, whether it's looking for their eternal love, whether it's wanting that house, whether it's wanting to travel, whether it's a new career, whatever it is. Like, everyone has that emphasize want. It's just about understanding what it is and then energizing it so that it lasts a lifetime.
That's just so powerful, Karishma. That's just absolutely awesome. And when you were talking about the sort of the water and connecting and the energetics and things like that, and it was just like so resonation. I don't know what word that is. So resonated so much with me, because I have this pull, and I love being by water. I love being by the sea, and I love being in nature. And I've always sort of been drawn to and looked at and observed and the beauty of nature. Just even now as we're recording and I'm looking out into my garden, the different textures of the plants and the trees and where they are in terms of coming back to life after the winter, is buds and the colours, and I just get excited by that sort of the beauty of nature. And I say the sea is a real pull, and sunshine, and I love getting out doing my trail running and just being out in the middle of fields that people mostly don't cross over, and I might be doing it at a silly time in the morning with a head torch on or whatever, but it breathes life into your very soul, into your body, and it energizes you. And being cooped up into a central heated house in winter in Blighty, no, I'm planning to manifest 3 months of the year, January, February and March, living abroad. That's my manifestation.
Oh, I love it.
Manifesto.
I love traveling in January, February, March, because it's always winter in the UK. Everyone's feeling a bit sad and thinking about, oh my gosh, I spent so much money over Christmas and what now, and all that hype has sort of died down. And that's why I love traveling, because it's like, yes, this is the perfect time to go. Weather's nice in a lot of places in January, February, March, so why not get out there?
I've definitely suddenly developed a wanderlust, I have to say. I was watching Ski Sunday and thought, oh my gosh, I need to be in the Alps. Then I was watching a documentary about Barbados. I've got to go to Barbados. I'm thinking, I'm going, well, what's happening? So I love Blighty. I do love the UK, and I love the changing seasons, and I love the sort of the spiritual energy of the United Kingdom, and especially South Wales, and I love North Norfolk. And there's so many places I still want to travel to and get a camper van and go around the coastline. But I've just got this sudden, I just want to go, and I want to go to South America to see a mutual friend of ours who's down in fact, Claire Quirk. I've done a podcast episode with Claire, and I very much want to go down and visit her in Colombia. I think let's make that happen. Let's put that positive manifestation into place. So what top tips would you give the listeners for harnessing happiness in their life? Just some nice sort of easy takeaways for them, Karishma.
Yeah, I think a lot of people tend to forget about themselves and what makes them happy, because they're so focused on making everyone else around them happy. And it doesn't have to be jumping on a plane and going abroad. It doesn't have to be something huge. It's about finding that little thing that sparks that joy, that little fire inside of you, and really thinking about how you can bring that more and more into your daily life. Because we often go so long in like a robotic state of mind where you're in this, I need to do this, I need to go to work, I need to, work with clients, I need to get the kids, or, whatever it is, whether you have kids or not, there's always like a structure, which sometimes we appreciate, but it's about bringing more of that happiness into your daily life. And there's things that need to be done, but where you've got little gaps in your day? How about doing something that makes you feel good? Whether it's sticking on a song and dancing around the house, which I love doing, or whether it's getting outside and just feeling, the air, the fresh air, being with nature, whether it's making those big moves and like going and doing something that is scary but is gonna make you feel so alive. It's about finding those things that really bring you joy. And of course, do your inner work. I can't even put into words how much that can transform your life, because yes, you can search in the outside world, but it's only so far that you can go. And if you want it to last, if you want to feel more of it, if you want to unleash this whole different level of happiness, it needs to come from within.
It does. And it doesn't have to be done. You don't have to do it on your own. When we talk about the inner work, it's not about sitting there like a monk in a cave on a hill in the Himalayas for the next 10 years to doing your inner work, going, oh, I've come out, I think I feel better. It's it's getting that help. It's connecting with what you feel's right, what resonates with you. And it may be the very fact that you've been listening to this podcast episode, so thank you very much, that's resonated, and you've gone, okay, well, maybe I quite like the idea of doing some hypnotherapy or doing some EFT, or I might like to do some Reiki, or I might just like to go and book myself a yoga trip or on a holiday, or I might like to do some meditation, I might like to download an app. It's just starting, but actually when you reach out to a good coach, a mentor, or somebody that can help you on that journey, because it's about that guidance and helping. So the right coach will help you facilitate your journey. They're not going to tell you what to do. There's no shame in putting an arm out for help. I mean, I've had a conversation recently with somebody who said, I think it is probably about time. Can we have a conversation? I'm going to speak to her. But she's felt reluctant and felt that perhaps it needed to do it all on her own. And you don't need to do it on your own. I mean, I've worked with so many different people over the years. And it's just powerful stuff, isn't it, Karishma? When you start, can I just put a caveat in here? When you start, there's no going back, because you'll just keep on wanting more.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I do want to share is that sometimes you see on social media and it looks like people are having the time of their life. Everything's all good. And I've had someone just reach out to me. Everything looked like they're having the best life ever. They're having so much fun. But they've actually messaged me asking for help because they're really struggling. So you might see people on social media who are living this best life, but yeah, you can have that on the external world, but what's happening on the internal world is what really matters. So I'm going to be having a chat with this gorgeous soul who is basically ready to take that step into finding out, why am I feeling like this? Why is this struggle? I want that happiness. So how am I going to activate that from within? And we just want more people to feel that happiness, don't we, Sarah?
We do, Karishma, absolutely. But I just wanted to pick up on what you just said just then, and it's a really, really, really important word, ready. And readiness for change, it will only happen when you are ready for change. It's not something you can force. If you feel that you want to bring it, well, I want it like this, and expect it, you have to put the work in. I mean,
yeah.
Yes, there is that sitting back and letting things unfold and take their place. You do go the natural flow, but you do actually have to still put the work in. Yeah, but it's not like right, I've got to do it. It's being
inspired
open.
Action. Yes,
absolutely.
Inspired action,
absolutely.
Guidance from your higher self. And those are the ways that you can take yourself forward.
I mean, one of my mantras is everything's working out wonderfully. And
simple, but so perfect.
Exactly, because it is, and you have that acceptance, and just know that everything will be fine. Everything's absolutely fine. There's no point. What's the point in panicking? Oh, Karishma, it's been wonderful. I could carry on talking to you for the rest of the day, but obviously.
Oh,
So how do people get in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram at Karishma V Sharma, and my website is www.karishma-sharma.com. And if you reach out to me and say that you are a listener of Sarah's podcast, I will happily give you a complimentary breakthrough call. So just let me know that you've heard this, and I will happily jump on a free breakthrough call with you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that fabulous offer. Thank you, Karishma. And thank you all for listening. And I hope you've thoroughly enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed talking to Karishma, because it's always a pleasure. And obviously, if you have, please do rate and review, and please do follow, because there's lots of fabulous content on there already. So this has been myself, Sarah J Naylor, at Harnessing Happiness, with the wonderful Karishma Sharma. Thank you so much once again for listening, and thank you once again to Karishma for being an amazing guest. Thank you, and until next time, goodbye and lots of love from me.
Thanks for listening to the Harnessing Happiness podcast with Sarah J Naylor. If you took value from the content, please follow the show on your podcast app. And to find out more about Sarah's ape mindset, visit Sarah J